minutes. But I think the first thing that really hit me is if you think about it, whatever business you were in, and especially for those of us that have been doing ACN for a while, we used to have the ability to walk into a room and smile at someone and put out our hand and shake their hand and really make a connection, an emotional connection with them. And those days now are different. Now we're reduced to a size of a screen. You know, whatever screen, when you're on a Zoom, whatever screen someone is watching you from, that's what you're reduced to. So what we went over in this workshop was, what are the variables that we can control that can help us to make that connection, to make an emotional connection to people, but also, you know, to appear just more professional. So I'm just going to go over a couple of them, but I think the first one I'm going to go over is the most important one. So if I'm going to be really present to this, I want everybody, whatever device you're using, I want you to point to the camera on your device. So not the middle of your screen, but the actual camera. Where's the camera that's actually, you know, filming what you're doing? Okay, that little dot is the most important part of your Zoom, and here's why. That's where you make your connection, right? That's where you look into that camera. You can look somebody right in the eye. Now, if I can see Nikki on my screen, right? But Nikki's over here. Hi, Nikki. She's waving at me. So if I'm talking to Nikki over here, does it look like I'm talking to Nikki? No, it looks like I'm looking and I'm not even really paying much attention, right? But if I was to say, hi, Nikki, how are you? Great to meet you. Good to see you. I'm not looking at Nikki, but I'm looking right into the camera. Okay, so that's one. To me, that's the most important thing that, you know, all of us can do is make that connection. But here's the other part: it's where our device is located. So where it's located is super, super important. Just pretend you had like I don't know, let's say a butter knife, for lack of and let's say on your butter knife you were balancing some green peas on that butter knife. Okay, and if you were to hold that butter knife right in between your eyes, straight across to where your camera lens is. You want it literally straight across. You don't want any of those peas to fall off. So in other words, if I was sitting, in a chair, but my camera was below me, now what does it look like? It looks like I'm looking down on people, right? So, and if my camera was too high, then that doesn't look very professional either. So you want to make sure. So I know when I was doing this workshop with this casting director, I realized my device I was using was a little bit low. So while we were on camera, and I just nonchalantly grabbed, luckily my Bible was right here, is the perfect height. So I stuck my Bible underneath my laptop, God saved me again. And I just stuck my Bible right underneath there, and that raised my laptop to where I could now look directly into the camera without looking down or up. So to me, if you take that away from what I just talked about, that would be beautiful. You'll really find to start to make a connection. And there's one other, I'm going to talk about two other things really quickly. The other one is lighting. Light is your friend. And here's what you want to do to have the proper lighting. Again, we want to control our variables, right? So the best lighting actually is if you can go stand in front of a window, that's wonderful lighting. It's natural lighting. So what I realized as I was setting up here today, because I have windows around me, is it's early here in California. So the sun is starting to rise and it was too much light. So in order to control your lighting, you just want to have available to you 3 light sources, okay? And you want those, if you pretend you're standing right in the middle of a clock, an old fashioned clock, not a digital one, standing right in the middle of an old fashioned clock, coming right towards your face, you want a light source coming at you from 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 2 o'clock. Okay, so like this, coming right towards your face. And then you can control that. So if you're standing in front of a window and the sun's starting to go down, you can click on the light. And in this workshop that we went over, we talked about bouncing light off walls and, lamp shades and professional lighting. Here's what the casting director said: whatever you can control. If you have a lamp, great. If it looks like it's not enough light, take the lampshade off. Okay, so 3 sources of light, okay, for lighting. But here's the other part to lighting. Never, ever, 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 ever do you want a light source to be seen on your screen. So it's okay, like I have light coming in behind me, right? But if I had a lamp that was like right here, or if this candle that I have over here, if that was a light, that would throw the lighting completely off. Worst case is if you stand in, or you're standing, or I like to stand, it's more energy for me. But if you're standing or sitting in front of like a mirror that's reflecting light, or worse is a window. Some people think, oh, I have this beautiful view behind me, I'll be right in front of my window. But then you will go completely in shadow because the camera is going to start focusing on whatever the brightest thing on the screen is. That's what the camera's looking for. So no light source on camera, okay? And then here's the last thing I want to just talk about. Maybe another time we can go over sound and some other things, but the last little bit just of appearing professional and making that emotional connection to people. The last thing is your background. I realized a lot of things where, sometimes when I was standing for my Zooms, there was a lot going on in the background where, whoever's listening to me might be going, is that an empty bag of Doritos back there? Or, did she not close her closet door? Look at all the stuff in her closet. So I had to just realize what my background, and I love this term that the casting director used. He used the term dangling the keys. Now, if you know the Mazers, they have some really nice places to put those keys. They have some gorgeous cars, right? So I like that analogy. That spoke to my brain. So you're dangling the keys. What you're showing in your background is you. It's the package that you're selling. It's what someone is going to want to do. It's the whole package to who you're doing business with. So he just said it doesn't really matter what your background is, but just make sure it's not cluttery. Make sure they're not going to spend more time focusing on other things. They want to focus on you, right? And it's okay to have things in the background. That's fine as long as you don't have maybe like a plant growing out of your head. That plant that you see over there, it normally is behind that chair. But if I stand here, then a lot of times it looks like I have this plant growing on my chair. So when I do a Zoom, I just throw the plant over. So little things like that. You just want to make sure you're appearing really professional. And I'm going to finish with this one. The last thing that he said was be prepared. He said, if you're jumping on a Zoom, you know what the topic is going to be. So for us, we know it's a PVZ. So he just said, be prepared. And what I realized is, again, so blessed to be a part of the Rockstar system, because everything that we need to be prepared to do a Zoom, whether it's how we do the presentation, whether it's how we can, help people at the end to make a decision with that close, right? Like we're not trying to close them, but we're trying to help them make a decision. All of that is, we get from this Rockstar system. So yay for you that you're a part of this Rockstar team and that they prepare us perfectly for what we need to do so that we can bless a lot of people with this amazing business. And with that, I shall turn it back over to you. And thank you again to the Mazers. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susie. And how many of us got a lot out of what Susie just shared? This is so important. And thank you for giving it to us, Susie. And I love, this is what leaders do. Leaders go get information and immediately share it. That's what we do as leaders. When you get off calls like this, it's about sharing it with your team because you just received something. You want to give it away for two reasons. Number one, when you teach it, you own it. So does that make sense? So when you're teaching something, like I know Susie owns this information because she's teaching it. And that's something that all of us here want to remember, when we get this great information, teach it to the people you're working with. They are a reflection of you. And it's so important for them to understand that, these are very important, especially as Susie mentioned, we're taking away the human element. Look, when we used to walk into a living room, I would shake everybody's hand. I would make sure I went over and looked everybody in the eye. Great to meet you. Nice to meet you. Go around the whole room. And that opportunity is not here anymore. So now we've got to work even harder on Zoom to make that feel that we're right there next to them. And so every little thing that we can do to eliminate distractions, I love that part, have some great lighting, look them in the eyes, make sure that that you're communicating right with those individuals and you're giving them, an opportunity for them to see that they're important. They're the most important people right now for the next 20, 25 minutes. One thing that Alejandra does, and I'm blown away, but every time she gets on Zoom, the first thing she does is she asks everybody, hey, what's your first name? Oh, wonderful. What do you do now? And great. And she writes down everybody's name. She writes down their occupation for every single person. And it just warms that Zoom up so that by the end of the Zoom, you sort of have an understanding of like who's engaged and who's paying attention and who wants to hear a little more, just because you took an extra minute to find out their name and you found out, what they do. Second thing is I actually like to call people out by their name. I'm always like, hey, Margot, I'm sure you would agree 20% is awesome. How about it, Edgar? You probably know a lot of people, don't you? Right, Fred? Fred, man, look, you've been in business a long time. See, once you start naming, they immediately listen and pay attention, because all of a sudden you're using the most important name on this earth, which is their name. And so thank you, Susie, for all that you do, man. I'm just so thankful. And I love what you said about your goals. And I hope somebody took a note on that. She said she prayed on them. That's a big message right there. And, for those of you that haven't prayed over your goals, why not try? Right? You know what I mean? Like, look, that's something where, again, you're asking for you're asking for supernatural power now. Now you're even going beyond your own, and you're saying, man, I'm tapping into the source to even get my big goals accomplished. So again, I love that you said that, because it resonated with me, and it's something that I actually do myself, but more importantly, promote it for other people. So thank you again for all you do, Susie. And now what we want to do is we want to recognize some people.